The egg had been sitting in the same spot for 800 years. It was beautiful in a sad way. The shell was pale blue like a winter sky, with thin silver lines running across it like cracks in ice. But it was not cracked. It was perfectly smooth and perfectly cold. So cold that frost formed on any surface that touched it. So cold that even the advanced heating systems of the Valorian Dominion could not warm it. The Valorians were proud beings. They had good reason to be proud. Their civilization was older than most stars in this part of the galaxy. They had built ships that could cross the universe in days. They had created machines that could reshape planets. They had solved problems that other species could not even understand. But this egg defeated them. For 800 years, their best scientists had tried everything. They used plasma fire hot enough to melt steel. They used gravity chambers that could crush mountains into dust. They used the focused light of dying stars, concentrated into beams of pure energy. Nothing worked. The egg stayed cold. The egg stayed silent. Whatever was inside had stopped growing long ago. Elder Moran was the last scientist to give up hope. He was very old, even by Valorian standards, and he had spent 200 years studying the egg. In his final report, he wrote words that would be remembered for centuries. The egg requires something we cannot give. Something beyond heat. Beyond energy. The dragons knew a secret that we have forgotten. Perhaps we never knew it at all. After that, the Valorians stopped trying. They put the egg in the Grand Archive, behind energy shields, where visitors could look at it and wonder. It became a tourist attraction. School children came to see it on field trips. Scholars wrote papers about it. Everyone agreed it was very interesting and very sad. And then they moved on with their lives. The Valorians were tall beings, almost 3 meters high, with skin like polished white stone and eyes that glowed with soft inner light. They moved slowly and spoke carefully. They lived for thousands of years and rarely felt strong emotions. They had evolved beyond such things, they believed. Emotions were for younger species. Primitive species. Species like the humans. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had only discovered faster than light travel 200 years ago. Before that, they had been stuck on their small blue planet, looking up at the stars and dreaming. Now they were everywhere, spreading across the galaxy like water finding cracks in stone. They were small and weak and died after only 100 years or so. The Valorians found them amusing. When the human diplomatic mission arrived at the Grand Archive, the Valorians welcomed them politely. It was good diplomacy to be nice to the newer species, even if they were not very impressive. The humans wanted to learn about Valorian history and culture. The Valorians were happy to show off their achievements. Ambassador Park Yuna led the human group. She was a small woman with black hair and tired eyes. She had been a diplomat for 20 years, and she was good at her job. She knew how to smile when she did not feel like smiling. She knew how to say the right things at the right times. But this mission was different because she had brought her daughter. Soy was 7 years old. She had round cheeks and big, curious eyes that looked at everything with wonder. Her father had died 2 years ago in a shuttle accident, and Yuna had nobody to leave her with during the 3-month mission. So Soy came along, holding her mother's hand and trying to be good. The Grand Archive was the biggest building Soy had ever seen. It stretched in every direction like a city made of light and glass. There were millions of objects inside, collected from 1,000 different worlds. There were weapons and tools and artworks and machines. There were things Soy could not even begin to understand, but she understood the egg. She saw it on the second day of the tour. Their guide was a Valorian scholar named Taiwan. He was young for a Valorian, only 500 years old, and he seemed to enjoy explaining things to the humans. He talked about each display with great detail, using words that Soy did not know. Then they came to the egg. This is perhaps our most famous artifact, Taiwan said. The last dragon egg in the known galaxy. It has been here for 800 years. Our scientists tried everything to hatch it, but nothing worked. We believe the creature inside died long ago. Soy stared at the egg through the shimmering energy shield. It was beautiful. The blue color reminded her of the sky on Earth, on those perfect winter mornings when everything was clean and bright. The silver lines looked like rivers seen from very high up, but there was something else. Something she felt rather than saw. The egg was sad. "Mama," Soy said quietly, tugging on her mother's hand. "It's sad." Yuna looked down at her daughter with a tired smile. "It's just an old artifact, sweetheart. It can't be sad. There's nothing alive inside." "No," Soy said. Her voice was very certain. "It's lonely. It's been waiting for a long time. It's cold and lonely and nobody helps it." Taiwan heard her and smiled in the polite way adults smile at children who say silly things. "The egg has no feelings, little one. Our sensors show no brain activity. No life signs at all. It is just stone now. Beautiful stone, but only stone." Soy did not argue. She had learned that adults did not always listen to children, even when children were right. But she knew what she felt. The egg was not dead. It was sleeping. It was dreaming sad dreams about warmth it had never known. As the tour group moved on to the next display, Soy looked back at the egg one more time. She made a silent promise in her heart she would come back. That night, while her mother attended a fancy dinner with the Valorian leaders, Soy lay in her bed in the guest quarters and thought about the egg. She thought about how long 800 years was. She thought about sitting alone in the dark for all that time, waiting for someone to help, and nobody coming. It made her want to cry. She remembered when her father died. She remembered feeling so alone, even though her mother was right there. She remembered how cold everything felt, how empty. Her grandmother had held her for a long time, not saying anything, just holding her. And slowly, the cold had gotten a little better. Maybe the egg needed that too. Maybe it just needed someone to hold it. Soy waited until very late at night. The guest quarters were quiet. Her mother had come back from the dinner and checked on her, kissing her forehead and whispering goodnight. Soy pretended to be asleep. She felt bad about lying to her mother, but she had to help the egg. She just had to. When she was sure everyone was asleep, she climbed out of bed. She was still wearing her day clothes under the blanket because she had planned this carefully. She put on her shoes and opened the door very slowly, very quietly. The hallway outside was empty. The Valorians did not need much sleep, but at this hour most of them were in their private rooms, doing whatever Valorians did when they were alone. Soy did not know the way to the egg room, but she remembered some of the turns from the tour. She walked carefully, staying close to the walls, hiding behind pillars when she heard footsteps. The Grand Archive was even bigger at night. The lights were dimmed, and shadows stretched across the floors like sleeping giants. Some of the displays glowed with their own light, making strange patterns on the walls. Soy was scared, but she kept walking. She thought about the egg, alone in the dark, and that gave her courage. It took her almost an hour to find the right room. She got lost twice and had to hide from a cleaning robot that hummed past her without noticing. But finally, she saw the familiar blue glow ahead. The egg was exactly where she had left it, sitting on its pedestal behind the energy shield. The frost on its surface sparkled in the dim light. It was so beautiful and so sad. "Hello," Soy whispered, walking up to the display. "I came back. I told you I would." The egg did not respond, of course. But Soy felt something change in the air. A small shift, like the room was holding its breath. "I know you're lonely," she continued. "I know you've been waiting a long time. But I'm here now. You don't have to wait anymore. She looked at the energy shield. It hummed softly, a wall of light between her and the egg. The Valorians had explained that the shield was very advanced. It could stop weapons and explosions and anything that might damage the precious artifacts inside. Soy did not understand how it worked. She only knew that she needed to get past it. She reached out her hand. The shield should have stopped her. Later, the Valorian scientists would spend years trying to understand what happened. They would write thousands of papers about it. They would propose theories about special energy fields that humans have, about quantum something or other that allows matter to pass through barriers under certain conditions. They would argue and debate and never reach a conclusion. But Soy did not care about any of that. She just reached out, and her hand went through the shield like it was made of water. The sensation was strange. It felt like pushing through thick honey, slow and warm. Then her hand was on the other side, and the egg was right there in front of her. She did not hesitate. She stepped forward, her whole body passing through the shield, and wrapped her arms around the egg. It was cold, colder than anything she had ever touched. Colder than ice, colder than snow, colder than the freezer in her grandmother's kitchen back on Earth. The cold bit into her skin and made her bones ache. But she did not let go. "It's okay," she whispered, pressing her warm cheek against the frozen shell. "I'm here. You don't have to be cold anymore. I'll keep you warm." She held the egg tighter. She thought about all the warm things she knew. She thought about her father's hugs, big and strong and safe. She thought about her mother's hands brushing her hair at night. She thought about her grandmother's kitchen, full of cooking smells and laughter. She thought about sunny days on Earth, running through grass with bare feet. She thought about love. And deep inside the egg, something that had been sleeping for 800 years began to wake up. Soy felt it first as a tiny vibration, like a heartbeat starting for the first time. Then the silver lines on the shell began to glow, softly at first, then brighter and brighter. The blue color changed, becoming deeper and richer, like the sky just before sunset. The egg grew warm under her arms. Soy laughed with surprise and joy. She did not understand what was happening, but she knew it was good. She knew she had done the right thing. The vibration grew stronger. The glow spread across the entire shell. Then, with a sound like singing, the egg began to crack. Not breaking, hatching. The cracks spread in beautiful patterns, following the silver lines. Light poured out from inside, warm golden light that chased away the cold and the dark. Soy stepped back, still holding pieces of the shell that fell into her hands. And then she saw him. He was small, about the size of the cat her grandmother kept. His scales were deep blue and silver, wet and shiny from the inside of the egg. His wings were crumpled against his back, still too new to spread. His eyes were large and golden, and when they looked at Sai, she saw something ancient and wise looking back at her, but also something young, something newborn, something that had just discovered the world for the first time. "Hello," Soy said softly. The little dragon made a sound, something between a purr and a chirp. Then he crawled forward and climbed into her lap, curling up against her warm body like he had always belonged there. Soy wrapped her arms around him and held him close. He was warm now, not cold at all. His small heart beat against her chest, strong and steady. Somewhere in the archive, alarms began to sound. But Soy did not notice. She was too busy meeting her new friend. "I'll call you Haniel," she whispered, remembering a word her mother had taught her. It meant sky in Korean. "Because your scales look like the sky." Haniel chirped again and pressed closer to her. In her mind, Soy heard a voice, soft and gentle and full of wonder. "Thank you," it said. "Thank you for finding me. Thank you for being warm." Soy smiled and kissed the top of his scaly head. "You're welcome," she said. "I'm glad you're not cold anymore." The alarm that echoed through the Grand Archive was not like any alarm the Valorians had heard before. It was not the sharp warning of a security breach or the loud noise of a fire alert. It was something different. Something that made everyone who heard it stop what they were doing and feel a strange emotion they could not name. It was a harmonic tone, rising and falling like music. It was the sound of something impossible happening. The sound of a miracle. Within minutes, the egg room was filled with Valorians. Security guards came first, their weapons ready for an attack that never came. Scientists came next, their eyes wide with disbelief. Then the leaders, the elders, the important people who made decisions for the entire Dominion. And finally, pushing through them all with her heart pounding and tears running down her face, came Ambassador Park Yuna. "Soy!" she screamed. "Soy, where are you?" She found her daughter sitting on the floor in front of the broken pedestal. The energy shield was gone. Pieces of pale blue shell lay scattered around her like fallen petals. And in her lap, curled up like a happy cat, was a creature that should not exist. "Mama, look!" Soy beamed up at her mother with pure joy. "He was just cold. He needed a hug. That's all. He just needed someone to hug him." Yuna could not speak. She could only stare at the dragon in her daughter's arms. It was real. It was alive. After 800 years, after all the failed attempts by the greatest scientists in the galaxy, her 7-year-old daughter had done what no one else could do. The dragon lifted his head and looked at the assembled Valorians. His golden eyes were calm and ancient, holding knowledge that was older than their civilization. When he moved, his scales caught the light and shimmered like water. Then Yuna felt something brush against her mind. It was like a hand gently touching her thoughts. It was not scary. It was warm. Every person in the room felt it at the same time. A voice spoke directly into their minds, bypassing their ears entirely. It was the voice of the dragon. 800 cycles of your time, the voice said. It was deep and slow, like a river moving through a canyon. Your kind tried to wake me with fire, with energy, with force. You used machines and science and power, but you never understood. The Valorian elder named Moran, who was very old and had studied the egg for 200 years, stepped forward. His voice shook when he spoke. We did everything we could. We tried every method known to science. What did we do wrong? You did nothing wrong, the dragon replied. But you could not give me what I needed, because you do not have it to give. What do you mean? Asked Taiwan, the young guide who had shown Soyi the egg just yesterday. What did we lack? We have the most advanced technology in the galaxy. The dragon's golden eyes moved to look at Soy, who was gently stroking his scales. There was something soft in that ancient gaze. Something like love. My kind are not creatures of heat, he explained. We are creatures of connection, of bond. We need something that cannot be measured with machines or created in laboratories. We need love. Pure, simple love, given freely without expecting anything in return. The Valorians were silent. They were a logical species. They understood equations and physics and the laws of the universe. But love was not something they had thought about for a very long time. They had evolved beyond such primitive emotions, they believed. They had become something higher, something better. Or so they had thought. Your machines could not wake me because they offered nothing of themselves. The dragon continued. They gave heat, but heat is not warmth. They gave energy, but energy is not care. Do you understand the difference? Moran shook his head slowly. I'm not sure that I do. This child does. The dragon looked at Soy again, and his voice became gentler. She saw a cold, lonely thing that everyone else had given up on. And she came in the middle of the night to hug it. Not because she wanted something from me. Not because she hoped to gain power or knowledge. She came because she felt my sadness and wanted to make it better. Soy nodded seriously. He was very sad, Mama. He was waiting for such a long time and nobody came. I couldn't leave him alone like that. Yuna knelt down next to her daughter, her tears still falling. She reached out a shaking hand and touched the dragon's scales. They were warm and smooth, like sun-heated stone. How is this possible? She whispered. Humans are different from other species, the dragon said. You bond quickly and deeply. You love without reason. You give warmth to strangers, to animals, to objects that cannot love you back. You adopt pets and talk to plants and name your cars. This is not a weakness. It is your greatest strength. He spread his small wings experimentally. They were still crumpled from the egg, but they were slowly straightening out. Long ago, before my kind passed from this galaxy, we hid our last eggs across the stars. We left them in the care of species who seemed worthy. But we knew, in time, humans would find them. We knew you would spread across the stars. And we knew that when you found our eggs, you would understand what to do. Why? Asked Ta'awan. Day asked, why did you choose humans? We are so young. So primitive compared to species like the Valorians. The dragon made a sound that might have been laughter. The Valorians built great ships and conquered great distances. They mastered science and lived for thousands of years. But somewhere along the way, they forgot how to feel. They forgot how to care about something just because it needed caring. They became cold inside, even as their machines grew more powerful. He looked around at the assembled Valorians, not with judgment, but with sadness. Humans never forgot. Even after you learn to cross the stars, you still cry at sad movies. You still hug your children when they are scared. You still feel your hearts break when something beautiful is suffering. The dragon crawled up Soy's chest and touched his nose to hers. She giggled. That is why we chose you, he said. Not because you are powerful, because you are kind. 50 years had passed since that night in the Grand Archive. 50 years since a lonely little girl had hugged a frozen egg and changed the course of history. Commander Park Soy stood on the observation deck of the Eternal Sky, humanity's first and greatest dragon carrier ship. She was 57 years old now, with gray streaks in her black hair and lines around her eyes from years of smiling and worrying. But her eyes were still the same. Still curious. Still kind. Still looking at the universe with wonder. Behind her, taking up most of the launch platform, Haniel rested his massive head on his claws. He was enormous now, bigger than the ship that carried him. His scales still shimmered like the night sky, but they had deepened with age into something even more beautiful. When he breathed, small flames flickered between his teeth, and the air grew warm around him. But his eyes, when they looked at Soy, were still gentle, still full of the same love that had formed between them 50 years ago. Through their bond, Soy felt his contentment, his pride, his endless patience. Even after half a century, the connection between them was as strong as ever. Stronger, perhaps. They knew each other so well now that words were often unnecessary. You're thinking too much, Haniel's voice murmured in her mind. You always think too much. Soy smiled. Someone has to. You just want to fly. Flying is thinking. Just better thinking. She laughed, and through their bond, she felt his amusement ripple back to her. The door behind her opened, and Lieutenant Kang Dohan stepped onto the observation deck. He was young, only 25, with eager eyes and a datapad clutched in his hands. He had been Soy's aide for 2 years now, and she liked him. He reminded her of herself at that age, full of hope and determination. Ma'am, he said, saluting crisply. "We've received a message from the outer colonies. What is it?" "They found another vault, ma'am. On a moon near the edge of explored space. 347 eggs, all intact." Soy closed her eyes for a moment. 347. Each one a potential dragon. Each one a potential bond. Each one a life waiting to begin. "Have you contacted the Academy?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. They're sending candidates now. The first transport should arrive within a week." The Dragon Academy had been Soy's idea 30 years ago. She had realized that not every human could wake a dragon egg. It required a special kind of heart, an openness that could not be taught, but it could be recognized. It could be nurtured. The Academy found children with that gift and helped them prepare. They learned about dragons, about the bond, about the responsibility that came with awakening one of these ancient beings. And when they were ready, they were sent to the egg vaults to try. Not everyone succeeded. Some touched the eggs and felt nothing at all. Some tried and failed and went home disappointed. But many succeeded. Thousands of humans had bonded with dragons over the past 50 years. They formed the Dragon Corps, humanity's protectors and partners. "Ma'am," Do-hun said hesitantly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. What does it feel like? The bond, I mean. When you first touched Haniel, what did it feel like?" Soy thought about that night, 50 years ago. She had been so small, so young. The egg had been so cold. But she had felt something calling to her, something lonely and lost that needed help. It felt like finding someone who had always been missing, she said finally. Like a hole in my heart that I didn't know was there suddenly being filled. It felt like coming home. Do-hun nodded slowly, his eyes distant. She wondered if he was hoping to bond with a dragon himself someday. Many young humans dreamed of it. "You should apply to the Academy," she said gently. "I think you might have the gift." His face lit up with hope. "You really think so, ma'am?" "I do. But remember, it's not about power. It's not about having a dragon to ride into battle or show off to your friends. It's about love. It's about taking care of something that needs you. It's about being willing to give everything you have to someone else." She looked out at the stars, thinking about all the eggs still waiting out there. All the dragons still sleeping in the cold. "That's what humans do," she said. "That's why the dragons chose us. Not because we're strong or smart or brave. Because we love without asking for anything in return." Through her bond with Haniel, she felt his agreement. His warmth surrounded her like a blanket, like a hug from someone who knew her better than she knew herself. "The Valorians have learned much in 50 years, he said. "They study our bonds. They try to understand the science behind it. But they still do not truly understand." "Maybe someday they will," Soy said. "Maybe. Or maybe it is something that cannot be learned. Only felt." She thought about the Valorians and the other ancient species who had conquered the stars. They had achieved so much, built so much. But somewhere along the way, they had lost something important. Something that humans had kept, despite all their wars and mistakes and struggles. The ability to love without reason. To care about something simply because it needed caring. To hug a frozen egg in the middle of the night because it was sad. "Commander," Do-hun said, "the vault coordinates are in. Do you want me to set a course?" Soy turned away from the stars and smiled at her young aide. "Yes, set a course, and send a message to the Academy. Tell them we're going to need a lot of volunteers." "How many, ma'am?" 347. Do-hun's eyes widened. That's more than we've ever awakened at once." "I know." Soy walked toward the exit, feeling Haniel rise behind her, his massive wings casting shadows across the deck. "But those eggs have been waiting long enough. It's time to bring them home." As she walked through the corridors of her ship, she passed young crew members who saluted her with respect. Many of them had their own dragon partners, smaller companions who coiled around their shoulders or flew alongside them through the halls. Each pair had their own story, their own bond, their own miracle. Humanity had changed since that night in the Grand Archive. They had become something new, something better. Partners with beings as old as the stars, connected by bonds of love that transcended species and time. And it had all started because a little girl had seen something sad and wanted to help. Soy reached the bridge and took her seat in the commander's chair. Through the view screen, the stars waited. Somewhere out there, 347 eggs sat in the darkness, cold and lonely, dreaming of warmth. "You know," she said, quietly to Haniel, "I've been doing this for 50 years, but I still get excited every time. Every new egg, every new bond. It never gets old." "It never will," Haniel replied, "because it matters. Every single one matters." Soy smiled and gave the order to jump. The ship shot forward, carrying her toward another vault, another group of waiting eggs, another chapter in the story that had begun with a 7-year-old girl and a frozen dragon. A story of love, a story of hope. A story that proved, once and for all, that the smallest act of kindness could change the entire universe. That was what made humans special. Not their ships or their weapons or their technology. Their hearts. And as long as humans kept their hearts open, as long as they kept hugging frozen eggs and loving without reason, the dragons would keep choosing them. Forever. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Not just for Soy and her mother, but for the entire galaxy. Haniel grew quickly. By the end of the first week, he was the size of a large dog. By the end of the month, he was as big as a horse. His wings grew strong and beautiful, stretching wide like sails made of starlight. His scales deepened in color until they looked like the night sky filled with silver stars. But no matter how big he grew, he always came back to Soy. He curled around her when she slept. He followed her when she walked through the archive. He listened when she talked about her day, about her father who had died, about her dreams for the future. And something strange and wonderful developed between them. Soy discovered she could feel what Haniel felt. When he flew high above the archive, testing his new wings, she felt the wind rushing past, even though she was standing on the ground. When she laughed at a funny joke, his scales shimmered with reflected happiness. They were connected in a way that no scientist could fully explain. "It is a bond," Haniel told her one day when she asked about it. "My kind always bonded with those who awakened us. Your feelings flow into me, and my feelings flow into you. We are two hearts beating together now. Forever?" Soy asked. "Forever," he promised. "Even when you are old and gray. Even when you pass from this world. The bond will remain. Part of you will always live in me." Yuna watched her daughter and the dragon with wonder and worry. She was still a diplomat, still had responsibilities. But everything seemed different now. The Valorians treated her with new respect. Other species sent messages, asking questions, making requests. Everyone wanted to know about the human child who had done the impossible. Then the first report came in from the outer regions of the galaxy. A Valorian exploration ship had found an ancient temple on a dead world. Inside the temple were 37 dragon eggs, all frozen, all waiting. Then another report. A merchant vessel had discovered a vault hidden inside an asteroid. 23 eggs. Then another. And another. Across the galaxy, in places that had been overlooked for thousands of years, dragon eggs were being found. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. All frozen. All silent. All waiting for someone to wake them up. The Council of Worlds called an emergency meeting. Leaders from 100 different species gathered in the great hall of the Valorian capital. They argued and debated and shouted at each other for days. Everyone had an opinion about what should be done. The Valorians wanted to study the eggs. They wanted to understand the science behind them, to unlock their secrets. The eggs were found in Valorian space, they argued. They should belong to the Dominion. Other species disagreed. The eggs were too powerful, too important to belong to just one civilization. They should be shared. They should be controlled. They should be protected. Nobody asked the dragons what they wanted. Nobody thought to ask a 7-year-old girl. Until Soy walked into the council chamber, with Haniel flying beside her. The room fell silent. Haniel had grown to full size now, almost 10 meters long with wings that could block out the sun. He was beautiful and terrifying, a creature from legends made real. But his eyes were still gentle when he looked at his small human companion. "You are fighting over the eggs," Soy said. Her voice was small in the huge chamber, but everyone heard her. "But you don't understand what the eggs need." The Valorian High Elder looked down at her with something like embarrassment. "Child, this is a matter for the council to decide. It is very complicated." "No," Soy said firmly. "It's simple. The eggs need love. They need people who will care about them. Not scientists who want to study them. Not leaders who want to use them. Just people who will hug them and keep them warm." Haniel's voice filled the chamber, speaking to every mind at once. "She is right. My kind did not hide our eggs so that powerful empires could fight over them. We hid them for those who would love them. For those who would wake them with kindness, not with machines. But the other species cannot wake them," a Valorian counselor protested. "We have tried with our own people. We have tried with a dozen other races. Only the human child succeeded." "Yes," Haniel agreed. "Because only humans have kept their hearts open. Only humans still know how to love without reason." He turned his great head to look at the human delegation, small and quiet in the corner of the chamber. "The eggs belong to humanity. Not because you are the strongest or the smartest, but because you are the ones who will treat them with kindness. You are the ones who will raise our children as your partners, not your weapons." The chamber erupted into argument again. Some species protested. Some demanded compensation. Some threatened war. But in the end, they all knew the truth. The dragons would only wake for humans. There was nothing anyone else could do about it. Ambassador Yuna stood up, her voice strong despite her shaking hands. "Humanity accepts this responsibility. We will find the eggs. We will wake them. And we will treat them as partners and friends, not as tools or trophies." She looked at her daughter, who was stroking Haniel's scales with complete trust and love. "If a 7-year-old can do it," Yuna said, "then surely we all can learn." Soy smiled up at her mother. Then she looked at Haniel, and through their bond, she felt his pride, his hope, his belief in her and in her species. They had a lot of work ahead of them. Hundreds of eggs to find. Hundreds of dragons to wake. A galaxy to convince that love was stronger than fear. But they would do it together. That night, back in their quarters, Yuna held her daughter close. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "Your father would be so proud." Soy thought about her father. She remembered his warm hugs, his big laugh, his gentle hands. She remembered how safe she had felt with him. "I think Papa sent me to the egg," she said quietly. "I think he wanted me to help." Haniel curled around them both, his warmth surrounding them like a living blanket. "Perhaps he did," the dragon said softly. "Love does not end when someone dies. It flows on, finding new channels, new hearts to fill. Your father's love flows through you now. And through you, it woke me." Yuna's tears fell onto Soy's hair, but they were not sad tears. Not anymore. They were the tears of someone who had found hope in a universe that suddenly seemed much brighter.